Make the case for us then for short selling.
Well, it's a tough week to be an activist short seller, I can tell you that. Look, if there is no short selling, where does the market go? I mean, what are we saying here? That it can only go up? There is a market for short selling, and there's a market for buying. And what we don't need is for Congress to come in and save everybody, because all they ever do is screw it up. And what they've done today is adjudicated once again on behalf of the banks and the hedge funds, and retail investors are going to be left holding the bag. And there's going to just be more angst and more anger that is built up over the last year. This is an extension of that. We don't need Congress to intervene on what amounts to the freedom of speech.
Okay, I guess the question is, do the platforms themselves have to intervene? That's what they did yesterday, US time. You saw Robinhood, of course, and others restricting trade. Let's listen then to one of the co-founders of Robinhood. He spoke to us earlier, Vlad Tenev, saying that the reason they did that was to protect investors. Take a listen.
We weren't directed by a market maker or any other market participant. This was a technical and operational decision.
Dan, were they wrong to restrict trades?
Oh, they were absolutely wrong to restrict trades. They were part of making the money. And first of all, Robinhood is not free, right? They have this flow that goes to Citadel, and it's unclear, where Citadel plays a role in this on the way up and on the way down. But I know when they've restricted trading on retail traders, Citadel is still trading. So this whole thing needs to get sorted. And when our members of Congress, come in and say the SEC isn't doing their job and they're blaming the SEC, well, I have one question for them. Who sets the budget for the SEC? And when you have zero interest rates for about a decade now, so there's nowhere else to put your money but the market, and you throw $7 trillion at the market over the last year, what do you think's going to happen? And Congress thinks that they're just not involved and not part of the problem. They're absolutely part of the problem. All of this liquidity, all of this angst, and what they call free trading, we knew this was going to happen, and we should just let it play out. And we should not adjudicate on behalf of the hedge funds. And Vlad is protecting Vlad, not retail investors.
How do you think this would have gone, Dan, if these trading restrictions weren't in place? I'm just curious what you think.
Well, I mean, look, it could still go up. It can go up infinitely, right? But it's going to, the fundamentals will kick in. It will come back down to reality. It will end in tears for some. But look, that's what it is. And if you look at this Reddit board, I mean, it ranges from people saying, I know what I'm doing. I know I could lose everything here, but I'm in this to prove a point. And then there are others on there that, have threads that sound like the Unabomber manifesto. I mean, it's just a whole gamut of angst on there. But restricting it is only going to build up the problem. We need to let it flow. Because right now, the only people that are really going to make the money in the end, once again, are the banks.
Right, and
this comes from
I only have to look at volume to be able to say that. Yeah. I was about to build on that. You don't even have to look at the price. You look at volumes, and a lot of people are making money on this. Retail investors, I would imagine, only have price to go with to make the money. Here's the question, though, because this kind of borders on the philosophical. What is the role of governments in ensuring stability? When you have inflation, say the price of an orange, $1,000. I can see how the Fed would then come in and go, inflation's got out of control. We have to step in. What's the difference between a normal goods, everyday goods, seeing prices soar, and say stocks like this? What's the difference then?
Well, this is not that, and this is one or a few stocks that this is happening to, and we're not letting it play out to see what can happen. Is the price of an orange going to go to $1,000? People are going to stop eating oranges and start eating lemons, I'm thinking. So, I mean, I don't know that is kind of an apples to oranges analogy that we can use. What we have to understand here is the problem here stems from our government, from the fact that there is no place to put your money. If you put it in the bank, it's dead money. You're losing money. If you get inflation at 2%, you can maybe get 1% at the bank, you're losing 1%. So everybody's now putting it in the market. There are Reddit users that are talking about making trades at a stoplight. That's where we're at. So when you have that cause and effect, that's what Congress ought to be looking at. I mean, how much they're throwing at the market and the cause and effect of that.
Dan, focus in for me on the hedge fund industry and outfits like Wolfpack Research. Are there fundamental structural changes that will take place and will impact the industry, or the industry itself will put in place as a result of the kind of moves and the kind of actions we've seen over the last few days?
Well, speaking for myself personally, I probably won't be the first activist short to put out the next report. I might want to see how somebody else does first. I mean, it could be. I mean, it depends on how things go. As something rolls over and the market will remind investors, including retail investors, that they are mortal, then things will get back to normal, and that we can put out reports that talk about price discovery and real value again. That's not something I would think we should do next week. I don't know that we need to have Senate hearings on Reddit. We might need to have Senate hearings on Robinhood and Citadel, and you're right, and the hedge fund industry and the risk that they take. I mean, thinking about shorting a stock that is 148% sold, I don't know. I don't think that's a very good idea. I'm not sure I would put out a report on that stock, you know, no matter how bad their fundamentals are. The squeeze is inevitable.
All right. So, Dan, final question then, just looking ahead, and granted there are still a lot of moving parts to this. How do you think this ends, and what changes in your view?
Look, how I think this ends is, I want to be very, very clear, is not how I want it to end. But how it generally ends is in favor of the corporations, is in favor of the banks, and will probably be moving the line towards tamping down freedom of speech. Whenever it is our government trying to decide the rights of an individual versus corporations over the last 20 or 30 years, I'm sorry, but the facts are in and the individuals are losing. And that is the problem here. And that's what the government really needs to sit down and talk about. And instead of, you know, Senator Warren coming on television and railing against the SEC, which she's part of setting the budget for, she doesn't need to talk to her base. She needs to talk to her colleagues. They need to talk to each other and stop pandering to us. We've heard it. Now go solve it with each other and work with each other.